question everything. Be unique. Be a rebel. Be a healer. Be a leader. Be a light warrior. Welcome to the new Aeon. Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is your host Constantine speaking to you from beautiful Melbourne, Australia once again, and you've just taken the red pill and tumbled down the new Aeon 2012 rabbit hole with me. And what a rabbit hole we're jumping into today. Oh my god, I've got a very special and very interesting guest today. As a matter of fact, this is my very first interview ever. So I'm very excited all around. This is a special upload. Now the person we're going to be speaking with today is, believe it or not, a genuine Bloodline insider. She's from an offshoot of the Illuminati, none other than the Collins Illuminati bloodline, which, as almost all of you would know that watch this kind of stuff, is an important bloodline from the main 13 bloodlines that we all know about through Fritz Springmeyer's fantastic work in that area. And through others, but he's the main guy. I just sort of thought I might plug his name there, plug it, because in case some people have not seen his work, his books, check out the 13 Illuminati bloodlines, Fritz Springmeyer. He's got a couple of other books as well. So I know her through Facebook. I've known her for a few months through one of my Facebook groups, and about a month ago or so, the way time flies, it's probably couple of months ago, but I feel it's about a month ago, we had a few discussions about all this stuff in a series of Facebook chats, and in the interest of anonymity, of course, in case you're wondering what her name is, of course we'll just call her, she left it up to me, so I just made up a name. We'll call her the Elven Queen, so that's what I'll have up there in the video title. You know, interview with the Elven Queen, Illuminati insider, or however I will word it soon when it's uploaded. So this is a rather long one. We spoke for hours and hours. It was the first time we've actually done a Skype. I didn't think it was going to end up being like I stayed up all night, pretty much last night doing this. I was very tired. It was about midnight. I was not going to do this. It was midnight in Melbourne and morning her time in the US. She's from the USA, but I don't know, it's just the vibes and everything that we had when we first started talking. After the first few minutes I kind of got energized and it just kept going, and it lasted till about 6 a.m. my time. It wasn't it wasn't for the entire 6 hours. We kind of stopped in between, had a break, so it was split in two different Skype calls actually, but I have a program that records the audio only of Skype, you know, the ones that just turn on automatically when you call someone on Skype. So we did do it through camera, but we just have the audio. I will just have the audio up here, but so it is quite long, but it's an absolutely fascinating interview, and like I said, it was not really planned. It's just sort of us being ourselves. And I mean, I guess I would have asked her about these things anyway in the Skype, but I kind of did think that, about 10 minutes or so into it, I thought, okay, this is turning into an interview. So I did, you will hear me at some point sort of throw it in and say, if I end up uploading this, blah, 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 blah. So I kind of didn't know at the time. It was just a Skype chat. So it turned out, if I may say so myself, it turned out quite good, actually, for a first. It was our first chat ever, plus technically my first interview ever. So I think, listening back on it earlier, it was not bad. I wasn't interrupting her much or whatever, like a lot of hosts do, so I think it was good. So we talk about so many different things, but so many interconnecting topics of the usual stuff that guys like that you guys would find very interesting. But chief of which is her amazing claim. This is the kicker here. This is the icing on the cake, the thing that will make this interview original, and I'm pretty sure it's going to go viral because of all this. Is her amazing claim that she's from a dragon line. Now, this is a concept I've never heard about this before. I did tell a few friends, a handful of people from my core, from the inner circle of Facebook friends, which are pretty much like family, like brothers. These people, there's like less than a handful of them. And I took a couple of screenshots of our Facebook chat, so I blotted out her name and everything. So I mean, I'm keeping her anonymity. I'm very strong. I believe very strongly in doing that. But the people, they saw some of the stuff that she said, and everybody was fascinated. Like whoever has seen the screenshots of the chats we had on Facebook, they immediately thought, wow, this resonates. Okay, so we had this massive conversation with these guys. There's a couple of them that we have like a group chat. We all discussed these things, and everyone was saying, this is amazing and it sounds genuine. So, I've been waiting for a while to do the interview with her, and it's happened now, and it's amazing. Well, it turned out better than I thought. So basically, the idea behind that is that there are two kinds of ruling bloodlines: the dragon line and the serpent line, which are the evil ones, Rothschilds, etc., and all that. And we will discuss that as well, not in length, but the Rothschilds are brought up at some point. And as the story goes, the serpent seed has usurped the power of the original dragon line, that kind of thing. It's that theme. But as I said, we touch on a variety of related issues, many different things. So as I said, I only recorded the audio, and in certain parts, because it was just basically me and her chatting about just regular stuff as well, getting to know each other a little bit better, familiarizing ourselves with one another, because it was our first Skype as well. You will hear that there's bits that are chopped out, and sort of I've kind of gotten bits and pieces of the audio and put it all together, sort of edited sections together and taken out other bits, and you will see that you will hear things cutting out and us sort of starting abruptly, starting on a subject out of nowhere. But I think I've edited it together pretty nicely. So you're in for a very interesting ride today, boys and girls. We talk about, as I said, the Rothschild connection to the serpent seed and so forth. The Anunnaki, about natural law, the do's and don'ts of it, about the archontic parasite mind, or in other words, the predator, or the flyers of Carlos Castaneda fame, and a wealth of related subjects, like I keep saying. So strap yourselves in and enjoy the ride. And I will see you soon. As I keep saying, this is just the beginning. Boys and girls, I have made partner now, and I am all fired up. I will upload 24/7 if I can. So, you're in for the ride of your life. One of the most fascinating interviews, Bloodline insider interviews you will ever hear. because it's completely some of the stuff, not all of it, but there is a percentage. You know, a quarter or a fifth of the stuff you will hear will be a first for everyone, me included. And I believe, you know, if you think you have heard about this stuff before or whatever, and you do know, you have more info along these lines, please contact me on Facebook through the Facebook groups, the main one, Knights of Truth, which I have the URL written at various points under the video there, and at the end of the video, and underneath in the description box I have a link to it and to the official website and everything. But that's enough for me now, and we will go to the interview now. So enjoy. But you have a good, I felt it when we spoke first, and now I can feel it again, that energy signature. It's like this warm, you have a warm, the aura's like, you know, when we were talking about the dragon thing and everything, especially when we spoke about that, I could feel it.
Yeah.
It's not a negative, it's not a negative draconian, and it's, you know, I don't know, it's different, and that's why intuitively I feel that, you know, you're not bullshitted, like whatever you told me, I don't know, it's like I can trust that you're not, you know, bullshitting me or playing game.
I think it's because it took me such a long time to accept that in that duration I had time to really understand what it all meant, instead of just going, oh, I'm a dragon, I'm a unicorn, I'm, you know, the way people do that. I really had like a real understanding of it on like a psychological and physical level, that then to where it had to prove itself to me.
But you know, like I don't want to be a ball breaking it, because I do this. Like I know I've asked you 75 times already the same thing, but I don't know. My Virgo rising. Like I suppose I can never be happy with an answer ever. But I still don't understand like the difference. Like I told a couple of close friends, like my super duper inner circle people. I didn't mention you or anything. Like I showed them some screenshots of our chats, and I'm like, what the fuck is this? Like I've never heard about. It sounds, and everyone was saying, man, this sounds legit, but it's like it was new information. But we don't, you know, like when people say dragons, immediately, if we come out with this in the open, in the truther community, they're going to say, this is, you know, don't trust it, because it's like they're going to equate it with, you know, dragons equals reptiles equals serpents.
Right.
So I'm sorry to feel like an idiot, but I still haven't understood exactly the difference.
It's like an emotional bias. It's almost like how the Zionists wanted you to confuse the Jews, wanted me to be confused with Jews.
Right, okay.
It's like that. You know, in most cultures, in most mythology, dragons were portrayed as benevolent, magical kind of creatures.
And wise, yes.
And then wise and things like that. And so, and then you have this, they were never portrayed as reptiles, like cold-blooded.
Okay, so sorry, I keep
That's okay.
I keep having to rephrase my questions. How, when, at what point in history or whatever, something must have happened where everything just switched around, and like who did it? Like did the serpent line, the bloodline of Cain, like the Rothschilds did something, and like they've created this massive campaign of disinfo against the dragon?
They created that one. They took their identity and then they replaced with an identity that was really theirs. You know
right, okay.
That De Vere's work, while not altogether accurate, he kind of explains it pretty well in saying that it was like a big smear campaign to make.
She talks about like the dragon council, or whatever it is.
Yep. He explains kind of like how they took these people like elves and turned them into mythological creatures that were just little creepy crawly fairies that came in your house at night.
Yes.
He diminished them or made them something other than what they were, and it was really just a type of human, and the original kind of human that was here on Earth.
So that's how Tolkien's masterwork, like, you know, Lord of the Rings, That's
Yes.
pretty much similar to my novel. Like very, I mean, he admitted pretty much in some letters to even to C.S. Lewis, I think, that it was pretty much channeled. Like, but he didn't call it channeling because he was a Christian. But I know that my book is channeled. Like I accept that and I talk about it. But he basically got given those ideas. That was basically
Yeah.
based on mainly real information, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that they were a kind of humanoid, um, a kind of person,
Yes.
and that even but all the good metaphysics, Manly P. Hall and a bunch of other people go
Right.
into how there's 4 or 5 different kinds of people on Earth,
Yeah.
and they're all. It's not about the color of your skin.
No.
It's not about anything that we think of as race.
It's more like a soul type.
Yes,
Uh,
it's it probably begin to understand this about more because your soul, your consciousness has a lot to do with
Blood.
your blood, your physical development, what you look like,
Yeah. That's
So
why DNA and bloodline and all that stuff. That's why the Nazis and the Zionists and the Jews always are obsessed with, keeping the blood pure. And then the
yes,
Nazis basically copied that and wanted to be like a counterpoint, the polar opposite.
they
Doing the
they
same thing, but, a different race, like the Germans trying to maintain their purity.
they basically tried to destroy the race and then tried to resurrect it.
Resurrected. Who? Which race? The,
The Elven race or
right,
the
right,
dragon lines. They
right.
were trying to they wanted to destroy it because it was
Powerful. Yeah, leaders.
powerful.
Yes.
But on the other hand, they want to resurrect it so they can control it. But the whole point is you can't control it.
No, because it's designed to be sovereign, right?
It's designed to be sovereign and it's
Okay.
self-preserving.
Right, so you can't, it's like the truth, for instance, it's like how you can't, no matter what you do, the truth will always sort
Right.
of come out, yeah.
Exactly.
Or
So
natural law
it's
will always shine, yeah.
exactly. So no matter how much you try to suppress it or control it,
Yeah.
it's it's all going to be it's all going to come out.
It just doesn't work. It backfires on you. It's kind of like trying to, the patriarchy. I mean, I'm an anti-feminist, but I still kind of am against the patriarchy thing as well, like the bad side. When the patriarchy tried to suppress womankind,
Right.
and then it just doesn't work. Women are going to rebel. Like, I mean, it's not, you can never, it doesn't work. You can't control a woman or the feminine. It's not going to,
That
you're
and
not going to get good result from it. In the end, it's going to just explode in your face.
feminism is just the opposite. It's just women trying to control the masculine.
Well,
It's
yeah,
just
of course, feminism, yeah, that's another story. But I mean, in general, like the patriarchy, what it's done, like, especially
yes.
Catholicism, what it's done to the feminine aspect, like it hasn't worked out, and now then it's basically, what we've got to do now is find a balance between the two.
Yeah. Well, the whole world is composed of people, and so we can't expect anything to happen on a collective until individuals start.
Exactly,
So
exactly. I mean, everything, the whole is composed of each and every one of us. And I mean, we got to. That's why you got to work on yourself first. But I mean, the other thing, an interesting thing that it's taken me a while to get this conclusion that the advanced people, like the light warriors, I like to call them. I've kind of modeled the YouTube channel and everything around all that term. Um, I think that we can't waste time like with the sheeple, those that we call the sheeple. I don't think and the people have been accusing me, a lot of good friends as well on Facebook. They're like, oh, you're an elitist, you're an elitist prick. But then they came around, a lot of them. They said, oh, you're right, because you just cannot waste time. If someone is not ready to wake up,
right.
you're not being cruel for not wasting your time. I mean, focus on guys like us that are already there. So we
Well,
can build a stronger network, and then we can help these people a generation later when they're ready, or whatever.
that is that is basically what a lot of these philosophers were getting at when they said they had 4 or 5 different kinds of people on Earth. Is that one is that they want somebody to take care of them. They they need someone. Basically, what everybody's
So,
got.
so the masses, because I remember you said that in one of our chats on Facebook, you said the masses are pretty much, even though they talk about, because I met you, we're not going to say now, because I'm kind of recording the audio with this, because like I said, I got that automatic program which starts It turns on every time you do a Skype.
Uh-huh.
So I may get fragments of this and put it up. I mean, I'll show you. I'll show you the video
Okay.
first, if you know, to approve it or whatever. But you know, I don't want to talk groups and where we met, but we met in one because I've got about 10 truther groups or whatever I started. So so we've met through one of those, and we've chatted about. So we've been chatting. In case I put this up on Facebook, so people know, I've been chatting with you for about what, a month ago. We started talking
Yeah,
about this stuff or something, and
a month or a couple months.
yeah, because I mean, time flies. It's probably more than a month, but and it was
Mhm.
incredible. Like I was blown away because you came out as a genuine, you know, like you're from an offshoot of the Collins bloodline or whatever you said. Is that right? Is
Yep.
that one? Yeah. And then I kind of discovered that I may be, you know, kind of in one of those close to those 13 bloodlines as well. But I mean, I don't want to freak the listeners out now. You know, they're going to say, "Oh my God, he's controlled the position. He just came out and said he's a." But you know, I think a lot of us people that are quote unquote have got high midichlorians are
Uh-huh.
kind of basically magical bloodlines. You know, like Jedi blood. We've discussed that. So you were saying basically that a lot of people, even though they talk about anarchy and stuff, because we were discussing anarchy in the groups and Facebook where we met, and you said, look, basically they can talk whatever they want, but then pretty much 90% of the population or something like that, they're not ready for anarchy or anything. Like not yet, anyway. Maybe in 100 years. So tell me more about that. Like, are we basically designed to be ruled, or is it designed to be like Plato's like philosopher kings, where there should be like a top 5% of smart asses that
Well,
just know everything and rule us? I mean, you know, is that what I am?
people
Am I one of the philosopher kings? I don't know.
that's really what the dragon bloodlines were the philosophical spiritual kings, and that
Right,
they cared for their kingdoms
right.
and made sure, but in taking care of their kingdoms, the people were required. They couldn't just sit around all day, going, Mom and Dad, I need a gold brick. They were given things to do because humans like to be productive. But they were not slaves. They just
But
had things
people
that they
listening,
help.
sorry, people listening to this will think, okay, he said philosopher kings, and I kind of intimated that, oh, maybe I'm of that top 5% leadership caste, you know, because I'm a natural leader, whatever. Well, people are going to freak. They're going to say, well, what are they? Are they trying to? It's just like a pro-Illuminati discussion. Like we need to explain the difference between benevolent rulership and
Because it wasn't
dictatorship.
about suppression.
Right.
It was about cultivating
Right.
people and helping them to grow spiritually.
Yes.
I mean, you can just stuff them all in a monastery and tell them to, but because people
That's
like
awesome to text. Yeah. Yeah.
that would be suppression, but they were taught, skills, and they were taught to be creative, and they were taught
Yes.
to be philosophers, how to be philosophers themselves, but they did not have the ability to stay out of a controlling state of mind. So this was never about control or suppression. It was about caretaking and not allowing people
Mm.
to get into
Yeah.
dogma and
I
programming.
know the concept. I'm very familiar with the concept you're talking about because you may be familiar with it. You know the guys, Lee Bajent and
Yeah,
Lee and whatever the ones that wrote that, you know, that Bloodline of the Holy Grail, those books and all that. And they had one
yeah,
they wrote afterwards, which wasn't as big a seller, but I read it, or I borrowed it from the library once. The Messianic Legacy, it was like the second or third one after that, and they discussed basically those concepts of, you know, the leadership, the stewardship role that the Elven line has. And you know, this is like I wasn't even 25 then. I'm 39 in a month, so I'm talking about 15 years ago. So I was already there, like reading this stuff. So like I understand what you're saying, but coming out in our scene, you know how people react because we've both seen it on Facebook how they lose their shit. I mean, pardon the French people, but I'm an Aussie, so I swear sometimes too. But
they don't.
yeah,
They're in a massive confusion because one, if you listen
yeah,
to people real closely, they're always asking the government to change something. They're
yes,
always asking an authority
yes,
to change something. All
yes.
right. So this tells you that it's not about the authority. It's just that authority is not being very nice to them.
Well,
So
yeah,
really, what
so
they
they're throwing
want
the
is
baby out with
benevolent.
the bathwater.
People have to be honest and say, you know what? I don't want to be free. I don't want to take care of myself. I just want someone taking care of me who's not a shithead, who's not suppressing me, who's not, you know.
Yes, but then what about the theory? What about this idea of every single time you get a pyramidal, like hierarchical structure where there's a leader at the top, no matter what, even if it's the nicest person on earth, it's always going to end up. Don't you think it's always
They
going
always
to end
get
up?
power hungry.
Isn't it going to end up as a suppressive thing? Because I mean, it's a draconian model of rulership, like the top-down control system. I mean, perhaps we need like a more open, like a Knights of the Round Table type of leadership style. I don't really know. Like this kind of stuff
Well,
does my head in. It's
we've
like
never had in our lifetime. We've never had a leader that came from a managing or caretaking kind of bloodline. It's always these snake people.
when was
These
the
serpents.
last? When do you think, from your insider knowledge, when do you think was the last time like these people were pretty much openly ruling and stuff? Are we talking
Probably the
prehistoric? We don't even have records of,
no,
or
no, 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 no. Like the last remnants of those bloodlines are probably on the thrones of Terra back in like the 800s and 900s.
800, 900 AD? You mean
What's
like
that?
AD, like about 1,000 years
Yeah,
ago?
80 after
Okay,
Christ.
yeah,
So we're talking about, it's probably been like maybe 1,300 years or
right,
so, and
yeah.
um, in that
Where was
duration,
this? Like what? Which European country? Where was it?
like in
Britain?
Ireland, the British
Right.
Isles,
Yeah.
Ireland,
Yeah.
England, Scotland, all those families were all connected at one time.
Right.
You know,
Yes.
there was a dragon bloodline, for Scotland, and then
Yes.
or which
I
wasn't
have.
known.
I mean, I always talk about myself as I don't make much of the Scottishness, but I'm only half Greek. Like people, my name and everything. I was born in and brought up in a Greek family, and everything. And that's a very long story, and that's kind of my personal thing. But I will briefly mention that I'm 50% Scottish, so I looked into it recently, ever since speaking with you, and I think it may very well be that I'm part of one of those, some offshoot bloodline of those types of.
Now, in the meantime, some of these bloodlines may have seized and then lost the throne again in the duration. Um, there's rumors that the Plantagenets
Right.
had remnants of the old dragon bloodlines, and then
Yes.
maybe the Stuarts of Scotland.
Yeah.
But as time went on, and more of these snake people got into the bloodline and
Mm.
into the rulership, then all of not only was their existence diminished, the history of their existence only really remains very clear in mythology.
Right.
In
So
where,
again,
where
Lord of the Rings. I bought the book mainly for research purposes, right? But I've mainly watched the movie. But I even remember in the very beginning of the first one, The Fellowship, it says, has Galadriel narrate. It's sort of like the prehistory. It says, history
yeah,
became legend, legend became myth, blah blah blah. So we lost the real stuff. The real history sort of has become turned into a myth. And what you just described, it's exactly pretty much what you're saying happened. Like these were historical
yeah,
things, and now
it,
they're just myths. We say, oh, fairies and this and that, but they were talking about a real race.
they were real people. They weren't
Right,
like magical,
right.
magical beings. They were people that had
Ma-
a different connection
mag-
naturally.
Magical blood,
Like,
you could say.
yeah, they were like non-sentient. They were like sentient creatures.
Okay.
They were quite instinctual. They didn't have the same kind of consciousness. Um, they carried this in their blood, and they did introduce it into other human bloodlines
Right.
for them to learn how. For them to have that template or matrix to be able to elevate themselves, they did do that. That's what they did, but they didn't do it with everybody. You didn't want to give that kind of power to some ass bag, But
But
that's
okay, now like I've because my Virgo rising, I'm a bit suspicious or whatever, but still, I did bring this up every time you said this in the Facebook, in the personal message chats. I kept stopping you. I'm like, stop there. This is kind of sounding a bit too much like the Anunnaki story, which is supposed to be malevolent, coming from a malevolent place. They did this and they created the basically, these Illuminati bloodlines are considered to be like they're stooges, and it's not like presented in the positive way that you just said it now. Like, we want to. We want to do it because we want to elevate your bloodline, and I mean, I don't know. Is it connected what you just said with that?
Yeah, it's like the whole Anunnaki thing was sort of parallel.
All right,
It
so
ran
two
parallel.
different things happening.
Yeah, it's two different things happen simultaneously.
Right.
I would say that the Anunnaki is the source of the serpent bloodline.
Yes, of course.
And
that's what. Yeah.
The dragon, of course, would oppose that, because that was all about enslavement, not developing people to eventually become free.
Yes.
This was. I'm not saying the dragon bloodlines were perfect, but I'm saying that there was a duality that was introduced here, and this is where the serpents came into. And of course, they would identify these dragon bloodlines as being something that had to be squashed.
Right, because they're basically okay. So this is kind of sounding a lot like, I don't know, like like a White Lodge versus a Black Lodge. Like the Sith versus a Jedi type of thing. Like two factions that have got very similar abilities, but one of them uses it for suppression, and the other wants to, free mankind.
Exactly.
But still, like you said, the dragons. I mean, I noticed that when you said they're not perfect. Probably they're not as oppressive as the serpents, but just like the Jedi. I mean, you look at the prequel films; it's very interesting. Like you see the Jedi, they also want to have like a rulership position. So it's kind of like a benevolent dictatorship thing. It's not like complete anarchy. So I mean, obviously these dragon people are against anarchy. They're more like monarchy type of like benevolent monarchy type of thing, isn't it?
It was more about allowing people not. Of course, we couldn't let people run amok. There had to be a certain amount of discernment used, because these were like children. You just don't let children go run all over the place and do whatever they want.
Mankind was not ready until recently. No, we until now we're not ready to do anarchy. Even now, we're not even ready for anarchy right now. It's bullshit. When people say anarchy and all that group that we, you know what I'm saying.
They like the idea of it because it's a remote idea.
Well,
to be in the reality.
It's a romantic thing. It's like, oh, anarchy, I'm going to have no cops and no this, but I mean, it can't happen tomorrow. Is the thing.
No. They have to know what freedom means, and freedom means when the lights go out, you don't call the government and go, my lights are out, or the utility company.
Yeah, exactly.
They haven't gotten to that.
Responsibility.
Right. They do not know what it feels like to go, I don't know where my next dime's coming from. I don't know how I'm buying my next, how is everything is up to you. You can't just call somebody and complain, somebody broke into my house, or you can't just keep calling the system back in over and over and over again.
Yes, I mean, you have to, what if you want something, you have to pay the price. I mean, we want freedom. If you want complete freedom, then your responsibility factor has to increase, tenfold. Like, you have to do everything yourself. Like you said, no roads, no cops, no firefighters, no nothing,
And that gets hard, but then there's also that universal factor, is that when you open up and you get out of this, the universe begins working through you.
Yeah.
And so that takes a lot of burden off. But you have to.
You're saying, like, when a person basically takes the red pill and breaks out of the matrix, slowly, synchronicities and stuff start happening. Their high self awakens, and basically life takes care of you. Like, you go with the flow of life. But I mean, how many people have taken the red pill? It's like the Matrix films. Like, there's like a tiny percentage, 1% of people that have woken up in those films. And in those films, they're giving us the truth, the Illuminati secrets, basically. So what do you think of that? Like, do you think people, we are destined to wake up, or is that complete New Age bullshit speak? Is that a lie? That in the Aquarian age, everyone will wake up and we will all become like Neo. I mean, I see it kind of happening, I do, but not really.
There's a difference between waking up and having the potential to do something. People can wake up and go, oh my God, I'm a slave.
You mean being practical about, like, making practical changes and fixing the problem?
there's some really hard, tough questions that people, because remember, there's 4 or 5 different types of people in the world. Some people are born to be slaves. The whole point of the dragon
The
bloodline
bloodline.
was to teach these people how to develop enough on all levels of their existence so they were not enslaved.
Okay.
Okay, now
Is,
this isn't
is there a
easy.
point? Is there a point where they will, let's say, mutate or whatever, or ascend or expand, their consciousness, and these slave type people will become sovereign one day? But I mean, because all the prophecies, it's not only the Aquarian Age thing. There's so many prophecies. They keep saying around 2012, mankind will become sovereign and all this. I mean, aren't we destined sort of to become sovereign beings, like all of us?
Yes, that's it. The whole point is to become sovereign,
Yes,
not just over external influences, but internal influences
yes.
too.
That's where it starts. Yes,
It starts with, so if somebody can just be really, really honest with, start it like a self-healing process where you go, okay, I'm going to look at myself really honestly and go, I'm an ass bag, I'm a bitch,
yeah,
and did I hurt? If you can start there
no,
and start and get out of that self-judgment,
mm,
it's the same way where somebody goes, okay, I am a slave. I was
mm,
created to be a slave. I have the mentality of a slave. I can't
yes,
take care of myself.
yes,
How do I learn to be sovereign? Well, then you have to you have to have people show you how to be sovereign, help you to do that self-developmental work.
Okay, so
And this is
how do we get there? Who's going to teach? I mean, schools. Look at school, for Christ's sake. School is like, they shouldn't be calling it school. It should be called like the processing center, the brainwashing place. It's like school, the media, religion. For God's sake, religion. I mean, their only answer is God works in mysterious ways. So who is going to ever teach us? I mean, we've only got YouTube and
this
internet.
this is where these dragon bloodlines that are emerging again
Okay,
is coming
okay,
to come back and reestablish.
reassert.
Hey,
Yeah,
you are a slave, but
yes,
over the course of time,
yeah.
you need to be shown how not to be a slave, how to live. You can't live and be free in a slave environment. So, and they have the mentality of being, they're still, now this is what's funny, is they all still want the benevolent ruler. So they're actually working to bring this benevolent bloodline back because that's what they're asking for.
So what's the solution? I mean, to me, it's kind of like, I don't mean, sorry to, I don't want to be negative. How could I put this right? I'll basically say it. It sounds like a little bit of a cynical view on mankind. It's like, oh, mankind sucks because they got no responsibility and they're like children and they need babysitting. I mean, are we over that? Wasn't that like so 20th century? I mean, I don't know. I mean, you know how I am. I'm kind of
It's
half
doable.
glass half
It's
full type of person. So I think, Mac, I believe in people. I think, the sheeple this a lot of sheeple these days, but still, given 50 years or 100 years, I think the planet will be ready for like proper anarchy. Don't you think?
Yeah, I think so. They have to get sick of their own existence, though. They have to get tired of it.
How do you mean? What do you mean sick of it? Oh, like
But then
just like the red
you
pillers.
also have these Anunnaki people.
Yes.
That's part of the population who's going to resist this. They like the authority. They
How many
like
of
the
them
idea.
are there? You know how you said part of the population. You kind of said it
Oh
as if
God, is
you
is
meant
that
there's much more than the main 13 bloodlines. It's just they're everywhere. Is there a lot of them? How many offshoot bloodlines are there?
there's a couple of bloodlines originating almost like in every culture that were
Right.
of the dragon bloodlines. It was in China. China's,
Yes.
I think,
Yes.
probably on every continent.
Yeah. I mean, they're Chinese over myth. The creation myth is like the whole the culture sprung from a dragon or something like that, isn't it?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So that
Yeah.
was that. Now you see how that's been totally destroyed, except for certain areas of China,
Right.
Tibet.
Yes. Yes.
That's probably where you're going to find the last remnants of the Chinese dragon bloodlines.
Like the official. Yeah. The pure. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, they had their Shangri-La, they had their Shambhala.
Hmm.
That was their secret ultra dimensional place.
So that's what that is. Yeah, it's like it's a higher dimension
Yeah.
or something, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah.
The British single culture. I know Russia had one.
Right.
You know, you would probably know better what the Greek one
The Greek,
was.
yeah, there must be something. Yeah, yeah. I
You
don't,
know,
off the top of my head, I can't think, but yeah.
I'm sure I could see it if you know, I've spent most of my time looking at specifically the um, the dragon bloodlines of the British Isles because it got so
Right.
tied into the Masonic
Yes.
stories in Jesus Christ.
Yes. Okay.
So
Now,
that's
sorry. Now that you mentioned, because you know, you're probably getting the. It's the first time we Skyped actually, and you're probably realizing my ADD brain. It's like it keeps jumping from topic to topic. Because you mentioned Jesus, I mean, my God, the biggest question is this: the Merovingian bloodline versus the original Jesus one. I mean, apparently it was a holy one, and now it's become demonized or something. They even show us that in the Matrix, like with the Merovingian character in the second film,
yes,
and he's saying that he's the ruler. They portray him as being like the ruler of vampires and all sorts of demonic beings, and he has a lot of power with the agents in the Matrix. Like he's not like a regular human. So this bloodline, they basically tell us the Merovingian bloodline is the top serpent bloodline. Is that? Do you agree?
well, you see where the serpents came in and distorted the whole dragon bloodline there.
So that's what basically it happened,
Yeah, the
right?
Catholic Church came in and turned him into something he wasn't.
Okay.
And they created a doppelganger for Christ to tie people's minds up into serving them. But
So
look at what Christ was doing. Was he walking around ruling people?
do you
Was he
think
saying, "Oh, he's
did he exist? Did he exist as a historical? Was there a Christ brother? Like, did he really
he
exist?
existed as a historical being"?
So
Yeah,
there was also being, because there's so many people. I argue. I have some wonderful friends, as you know, on Facebook and all those groups, and I interact there all the time. I live on Facebook pretty much, but I argue a lot as well because I'm controversial. I post things sometimes about Jesus being an avatar of Michael and stuff like that, and that he was real. And then I have a couple of people that get really pissed at me that are very virulently anti-Christian. They're like, "This is retarded. This is stupid." But I can't believe that someone like you thinks Jesus existed. But it's not coming from a Christian thing. I'm way beyond my Christian thing. He existed as a man. Big deal. I mean, it doesn't make you a Christian if you say that. I mean, you know. So
yeah,
tell me about the bloodline. Do you think the bloodline is still holy? Like it exists, like they
yeah.
show us in Da Vinci Code and all that?
Oh yeah, yeah. The true Jesus bloodline is. It's just one of the dragon bloodlines. Holy or Holly, he's one of the Holly kings. Just like the kings that were sitting on Terra, there was a Holly king. But the Christian Jesus that the Catholic Church has developed that's a portrayal of a dragon bloodline being hung out to dry, being
Right.
weak, being
Well, it's
that's
a
a big.
trap. Well, it's a trap. It's a prison. It's a prison religion. It's their. I mean, religion is their biggest weapon.
Right.
These
The,
serpents.
the, the
Yes.
Catholic Christian Jesus didn't exist.
No.
There, but Christ's bloodline exists as much as I did.
Okay.
That
So basically, Jesus the man was basically much more like an ancient David Icke of Judea than anything else. I mean, he was basically like a conspiracy theorist slash anarchist.
yeah,
You
he
know,
was
like Icke or Passio or me. Yeah.
he was doing everything that the bloodlines are trying to do today.
Yes.
This is how you unfree yourself. You
Yes.
don't know how to manage yourself yet. This is how you learn how to manage yourself.
Yeah.
This is what you need to be doing. He wasn't
Okay.
sitting on a throne somewhere where people were throwing tax money at him.
Yeah.
That was never part of the bloodline, was to collect taxes in that way. He, yeah, you know, so that right there, he's a perfect example of a benevolent ruler.
Right. Yes. Yes. Like, but the thing is, the Jews. That's the problem with the Jews, of course. Where you know the discrepancies where they thought that they expected him being an earthly ruler, and Jesus was like, no, 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 no. You know, I came as a spiritual ruler. But
that's
in a way, he could have been like an earthly ruler too, right? Is that what you're saying?
he could have been.
Yes.
He was definitely from the kings of Terra.
Really? Is that what
The kings of Terra were earthly rulers, but they you know, I mean, they did involve themselves in material things, but it was not. It wasn't like it is now, where it was you served them. The material was all about making sure everybody was fed, making sure that everybody had pleasant circumstances. And I mean, they've been trying to revive this. That's what
But
the whole Renaissance is about.
isn't this a bit of kind of like an outmoded? I'm kind of getting like fascinating type of supernatural conversation we're having here with it. But like if you look at it if you take out all the reptilian dragon extra dimensional aspect, doesn't that kind of sound like just a bunch of royals trying to, like they're romanticizing their old power they had 500 years ago or whatever, and they're thinking, they want to maintain that, and they're saying, oh, you still need benevolent rulers. I mean, maybe because of my, truther, alternative news, new age upbringing background, I think that, we should have anarchy or at least not not benevolent monarchy. Definitely not that.
Well,
I don't know.
right now, any kind of benevolent monarchy that we have would just get destroyed.
How do you mean?
It would not even. I mean, at this point in time, we do have to have some of these systems have to come down. People have to make the self-admission that they can't take care of themselves. They're not free in their mind yet.
Well,
but
there's
they
no,
have.
there's no such thing as democracy. The word democracy, it's a misnomer. I mean, it doesn't really function as we think. Like the republic and democracy, it's not really
No,
a democracy.
no, those are two opposing values. Here
It's
in
a
the
shit
United
system.
States.
Yeah, I feel embarrassed because of the Greeks. They started a democracy thing. It's really doesn't work. Really, I mean, yeah.
But you don't know. You don't know until you try. You don't know if something's going to work until you try it. But really, this is what people are wanting to go back to here. Is it's almost like they have a racial memory about this time.
Yes.
When things were a little bit more idyllic.
Yes.
But there was always somebody managing things. There was always somebody directing things. There was always someone, and it wasn't always directing people. It was reminding people, go back to your creative self.
Yes.
Go back to, get out of your work for a while, out of your labors, and go. Here it's totally the opposite. Somebody's like, you're being lazy. Don't be creative. Just work. Just have that work mentality.
Yeah. The West is just all about production. It's too over masculine. Action. Yeah.
Because the work of the people, what the people produced, then stayed with the people. It stayed with the people. It didn't get shunted off to the ruler.
So they had so the dragon philosophy is no tax at all, or just at least something reasonable. Maybe everyone pays a 10% tax or something like that. How would it?
Everybody, there was food that you kept for yourself, and there was food that went. It was sort of like how the pharaohs had it.
To the communal.
There was a communal storage of food. Yeah. And that is where the bloodline did not eat any differently from the people.
Okay. Yeah, so that's, considering aside from having anarchy or democracy, I suppose that's the most fairest setup I've ever heard, really. Yeah, it sounds, I agree. I kind of agree.
They all ate from, that was their work. Everybody had something to do that was for the good of the individual, but it was also for the good of the community. There's a balance there.
Can I interrupt? Because something much more important is coming up now. Like for 5 minutes now, I've been getting, I don't always do this, but I just get intuitive stuff. If I upload this, people are going to be like, what the hell is he talking about? But I'm getting an intuitive, like this thing in my brain now for the past 5 minutes. I keep getting Babylon. So somehow Babylon is very important to this. Can you tell us
Babylon?
The connection? Yeah, I keep getting prodded to ask you about the Babylonian connection. I think, a lot of it all started kind of there. All this, the David Icke's of the world and all the reptilian theory, exponents of the reptilian theory, everything points to Babylon. That Michael Tessarion or whoever else discusses it, it's always Babylon, Enki and all them, they were like the Anunnaki. It's the Anunnaki central, that place, isn't it?
That's where that is where the fall of man began.
Yes.
There. Once these slave people that the Anunnaki created and got out into the general rest of the world.
Right. They destroyed it,
Yeah.
So all this stuff we see in the Bible, like the Anakim and the Nephilim and the giants and all that jazz in Genesis and everything, That's is that referring to something then or way, way, way older? I mean, I think that's
That's
probably way
that's re-
older.
that's referring to all the Anunnaki stuff.
But how old? I mean, really don't think the Anunnaki thing is only 6,000 years old in Babylon. It must be.
No, it's
I'd wager it's
that's
way
much
older.
older.
Yeah, exactly.
That goes way
There
back.
could be
Like
hundreds of thousands of old. Yeah, yeah,
that goes yeah.
like half a million
The
years
other
ago,
thing
I
about
think.
Babylon is that was that all the programming tools began there.
The religion, they basically refined their mind control stuff, like with religion, wasn't it? They basically mastered the monotheistic religion program there, didn't they? Like
Yeah.
basically the Christianity is the crowning achievement. It's the best
So
thing they've
all
done.
the programming, yeah, all the programming that we have today, and like they had the numeric system was
Yes,
based there.
yes,
Um, that evolved into the alphabet,
right.
and that eventually evolved into programming languages. It used to be language was words were about sounds.
Okay,
We even 500 years ago, you'll see if you read old stuff like maybe from Henry VIII's court,
right.
one word could be spelled differently many times. So they went by how the word sounded, not how it was spelled.
Yes,
You understand the
yes.
word spell?
Spell, I mean, that's a double meaning as well, exactly. Yes,
Yes.
yes. So what they're doing now is creating, because our subconscious cannot tell the difference between, let's say, right and right, as in R-I-G-H-T and
Right.
W-R-I-T. So, like I heard it, I heard somebody talking about this in a video recently. It's like, and they're saying, writing a law, as in writing it with a pen, but it's like making it right as well. So all that, I think Passio was saying it, or something
Yeah.
or
Spelling,
Jordan
spelling.
Maxwell talks about that. Yeah,
Yep. So language, how it programs the human mind,
yeah.
they all came out
I
instead
mean,
of
because
the sounds
these
that we make.
people, what I've understood is that people think, they watch Harry Potter and all that, and all those types of things, and they think, oh, black magic is this and that, and it's Darth Maul with the lightsabers. It's not. Black magic is basically hypnotism and knowledge of how the subconscious works. That's it.
Yes.
And it's basically hypnotizing people through sounds and words and all that, and images. That's why they use all the symbolism in the movies and in the corporate logos. But look how many corporate logos have got all this Illuminati, all those pyramids and stuff. I mean, it's
That's all
yeah,
spell work.
exactly. And why? I mean, I kind of understand, and a lot of the people on the channel will see that I've got quite a few videos that I'm, whenever I see symbolism in Hollywood films and stuff, I make a video about it. So I notice this stuff, but you don't, guys like us. I mean, I suppose you could call me a noticer, but I don't really know an explainer. I don't know what the reason. Nobody really knows why. What would the point of putting a pyramid in a logo, in a corporate logo? What does that do? How does that help them?
Shapes. It's the perception. There's shapes. Why is money or dollar bills square? Is the same reason a pyramid is is used in these.
Triangle, yeah.
It's a means of holding power or energy.
Right. Because it is, I mean, the pyramid, I might probably get in trouble for this, but I love the pyramid shape. I think it's a
I
divine
do
shape.
too.
It's a divine shape. It's not, a lot of people, the fundamentalist Christian truthers
That's
will hear
that's
this
the
and say, what is he talking about? It's Illuminati. The pyramid is probably, I would say that God is a pyramid. God is like a tetrahedron or whatever, okay? But, I mean, my meditation pyramid, you meditate under a pyramid, it's incredible. But what have the
I
Illuminati done with the pyramid shape and co-opted it? Like, why has it had this negative connotation now in the public?
Okay, well, because people have lost their power. So if you give you and I, let's say somebody gives you and I a magical pyramid,
Yes.
okay, and I take it and go out stabbing people and robbing their pockets, and you
Yeah.
use it to um,
To free people or
fight
to
money
help people.
for
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
What is? It's like the gun.
Exactly.
Who's
Yeah. Yeah. Or like a knife or
that's
whatever. Yeah.
yeah. The universe doesn't make any differentiations about who is using these basic building blocks of the universe.
Yes.
It's simply responding to how it's used.
Yes. And you get judged and you get karma comes to you according to how you use what you do. Yeah.
Exactly. So in a society that was immortal, that there was no way of killing anybody, would murder be murder be an issue?
No, yeah,
If
I know.
nobody raised in a society there was no death, would
Yeah,
murder or killing anyone even be an issue?
yeah. So I know what you mean. So it's all it's always relative to our human affairs. It's got nothing to,
Yeah.
God's law.
Now,
It's like it's impersonal. Yeah.
so what happened is that the dragon bloodlines kind of got diminished by their own being naive. Here comes these serpent lines, and yeah, so you have these dragon bloodlines that live all over in every continent of the world,
I
and they.
can't hang on. I can't see
Oh,
you.
you can't see me. Oh wait, I turned my video off.
Okay.
So you have,
Yep.
and along come these what we call the snake minds or the serpent-minded people, who. What do you make of them? You've never seen anything like this before on the earth.
Can you tell me
They
how this originated? Like I said, still haven't understood through our conversations on the Facebook chat. I kind of half understand how these things originated. Like, are the Bible stories and all that pretty close to the mark?
Yeah.
Where are these things from? Like, are they basically like draconians, like lower astral entities?
Well, there's two lines of thought on there. One is that the Anunnaki
Yeah.
came from space.
Yes.
Now, space has two meanings. Space can mean
Exactly.
space inside or space outside.
Yes. So we can never
So
really know. Yeah.
So you're never really going to know. How did they that's like the parasitical mind at work there.
Right. Well, it's like well, I suppose we could just say archons, or the
Archons.
Carlos Castaneda's flyers. That concept.
They're just physically, if they existed physically, then they were archonically driven physical beings, and if they came from inner space or dimensional space, then they were still archons. So it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, yeah. Whatever it is, I mean, that's the thing. Lately I've got to a conclusion. I was discussing with a female friend on Facebook very recently about this, and we were like, man, we're not sure what the archons were still, even though we've studied it a lot. And we concluded that, reptilians or whatever, they're probably not archons themselves, but just their minds are just, as you said, controlled by that,
Inhabited by archonic beings.
by that predator or whatever it is, the entities. Yeah.
Yes. So what the whole bloodline, the current bloodlines that are sitting on the monarchies today was.
Yes.
They wanted the power of the draconic bloodlines, but they still wanted the mind of the archon, so they could use. So they have the mind of the archon.
Yes.
But they cannot get the power of the original bloodline.
Yeah. So it's like They're like a counterfeit power.
Yes.
They haven't got their own, like exactly as we described the archons, like they're just imitators type of thing.
They're just imitators. They need blood.
Oh
They
God,
need blood.
here we go. It's very
Yeah.
interesting. Like that sounds, a lot of that stuff. Like I was, as you know, like all of us. Well, the normal people in Truth the Scene anyway are David Icke fans, and they don't think he's crazy. When I got into him, of course, he had the Arizona Wilder video and everything, that interview he did with that woman in the early days when he started with his reptilian theories. And even to guys like me, some of that stuff was like, I'm thinking, are they seriously, like, this blood drinking thing, is that real? Like, I've never seen it before. I don't know what to say. I mean, I've seen reptilians, I've told you. I've faced a draconian once. I actually saw a winged Draco. It was at my house. Yes, people, I just said that on Facebook, on YouTube. But is this blood drinking? Tell me more about that. It's one of the most fascinating, like morbidly, I have a morbid fascination with it because, it's a really messed up subject. I mean, if this is really happening on a mass scale.
This is happening on a mass scale now because the dragon bloodlines had what was called blood rights, where when a person became spiritually
mature,
spiritually, mentally, and emotionally able to handle this power,
okay,
it was granted to them by the blood.
Okay, but I
And
mean blood rites. You mean not like sacrificing virgins or anything?
no,
No.
nothing like that.
Okay,
It
so it
might
was
have,
like a
the,
ceremonial, like a ceremony thing.
yeah, it was like a thimble. A thimble of blood was
Right.
given
Okay. Okay.
every every day for like 7 years,
Right. Okay.
um, or it was done through sex,
Right. Yes.
or so
Which
they
is
had
an
different kinds of
energy.
blood.
Sex is like an energy exchange thing anyway. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And a lot of times the people that gave the blood were
Yes.
untried sexual beings, and it could have been a virgin male or female.
Yes. Which have a higher quality blood, of course,
Higher quality of,
because they're
yeah,
virgins. Yes.
they they were more
Yeah.
that was their perception.
Pure blood.
Right?
Yeah.
But there was no, this was done willingly. You did not
Yes.
take blood from
Yes.
somebody.
Yes.
It was offered in
Yes.
sacrifice. They
Right.
sacrificed a thimble of blood or whatever they
Yes.
were doing
I
to,
remember you briefly, yes, you mentioned that in one of our chats. Yes, yes,
yes.
yes.
What was Christ doing at the Last
At the
Supper?
last similar, yeah, similar.
He was sharing his blood.
Yeah.
Now, later they said it was wine, but no, it was blood. Blood
So,
went in the golden chalice.
so you're saying it was basically a similar ritual. Okay.
What happened is when he shared his blood with Peter, is Peter went insane. Peter was not emotionally or mentally developed enough to have the blood of Mary.
Okay. Is that a symbolic thing or literal? Like this really
No,
happened?
it's literal. That's literally, it drove him insane, and he went and developed the Catholic Church.
Right.
And look at all that insanity.
Well, I don't know. Wait, is this? I mean, is this like inside? How do you know this?
It just comes out. It's written in the blood. It's on the DNA. This whole story is scribed.
Right. Okay. Okay.
So
No, I'm just
some,
because some of the time, because like I've told you in our chats, no offense, but some of this stuff, I thought, wait, I've read that in such and such book. I'm thinking, is this legit or did you read it in a book? That's because I'm thinking it kind of correlates with a lot of stuff like
no, I've come
so
across
I've
books
read.
that have said kind of parallel what I'm saying, but
Yeah.
all of this
Yes.
actually, it's not it's not psychic information or channeling, because it's not,
Like it's
because
not from
the
an
quality
exterior.
of
It's
it,
not from an exterior source. It's from within you. You mean?
it's from within me, yeah.
Right.
And that is where, when you go back and you look at all these old philosophies,
Yes.
what they're talking about is how the blood became self-preserving was because it's inscribed with knowledge
Right.
that they knew, at some point they knew the darkness that mankind was going to fall into, and they knew that anything that they wrote would be destroyed,
Right.
that any monuments that they put up,
So
that,
basically, blood is like a database, like a not a database. What's you know what I mean? It's a wrong word I use,
yes,
but uh,
it's like they
uh,
put a little packet of information on the
yes,
DNA
yes,
and hoped at some point in
yeah,
history something would happen that would open that packet.
like a time capsule. That's what I wanted to say before.
Yes,
Yes, yes, a time
that's what they,
capsule in the DNA. Well, I mean, DNA is information, isn't it? Really, that's
it's
actually
just
it's
information.
actually what it is. Like it's not. That's literal. It's actually what it is. Yeah,
It's all kinds of information. It
yeah,
can tell your body when to go into
yeah,
puberty, or it
yeah.
can tell you where you came from, because it's
It's
all genetic.
DNA is the most incredible. Like I've been thinking about this for a number of years now. Like the connection between like how DNA, because it all fits with the blood drinking of the elites that they do and the satanic ritual with the blood drinking and everything, and the fact that they're always talking about the power of blood. Like the Nazis and the royals and the Jews. And all. Blood is not just a physical thing. It seems to be like a gateway between the 3D and
Yeah,
the higher spiritual. It's like your spirit actually lives in your blood, like literally, I think. So
yes. And women and blood all have something to do with each other too, because women bleed every month, and
yes,
um, uh,
so it has even more significance with females, right?
yes,
Blood, yes,
because that, like in Star Wars, it's passed down through the maternal side. The
right,
mitochondrial
yes,
element is passed down.
like the midichlorian thing, yes, yes. And
Yeah.
based, I mean, Lucas, what do you think? I mean, there's no info on him per se, like on the internet, like legit info, but from my understanding, I can just see it that he is some kind of very high level insider, possibly like I don't know. So, like I
No,
thought he was like one of the he was from the original benevolent Knight Templar faction or something. He knows so many things. Like this midichlorian thing, it's insider occult knowledge, isn't it? For one thing.
yes. Yep, it is. They know about it. It's us that's been left in the dark about it because
Okay.
we're always seeking it out there. We're always
But
looking for
why
it.
does he why does a guy like him not? I mean, he's not part of the Freemasonically controlled.
I don't know that if he's consciously aware of what he's like
That
Stephen King sort of.
that's the
Stephen
thing,
King,
isn't it? It's like Tolkien, like where he channeled Lord of the Rings without even realizing. Yeah, true.
but his Christian mindset wouldn't allow him to let
Yes,
him think that he was channeling, but he still
yes,
was.
yes, yes. Like I admit it, I to myself and to others that a large chunk of my novel, which is going to come out one day eventually, is channeled like literally.
But your subconscious can't be controlled that way. Your subconscious will have its say, regardless of whether your conscious mind agrees with it or not. Your conscious mind go, oh, this is a story, and your subconscious is spinning it out as if
Mm.
it's just revealing what's inside of you.
I wanted to talk about I mean, even from the start, from an hour ago, about the serpents and the Rothschilds and stuff. But I'll leave that for in a couple of minutes. I really wanted to say, because ever since we've spoken out, like this is the first time we're on camera, I can feel that warm, warm aura. I could say I don't really know what to call it. Like I noticed that every time we spoke through the Facebook, personal, like the PM, every time we spoke about this stuff, I could feel that energy. Not always, just only when we spoke about the dragon thing. I don't know why, you just kind of switched it on. I can feel it now. So being an intuitive, I go by intuition a lot. I've got a strong intellect side, but still, I definitely don't feel malevolent energy from it. Like I feel that warm kind of thing. What can you tell me about that? Like that's the signature, that's the energy signature of that dragon spirit or whatever that you're talking about,
It's
isn't it?
it's kind of I call it like a purple blue energy.
Purple, blue. Purple is the highest spectrum. That's like the violet flame, the highest spectrum light.
It's a purple. It's almost like a purple teal with
Right,
purple and teal together. Which is why purple is the color of royalty. It
right. Yes,
began.
because it is that. I mean, if you look at it scientifically, which there's no such thing as magic anyway. Everything is science. It's explainable.
Right.
It's the highest spectrum of the color, the whatever the rainbow. Like for instance, like the purple, the violet is the highest spectrum of that, and then after beyond that, it just disappears. You can't see after that. So
Yes.
like ultraviolet and all
So,
that. So
but
I don't know. I
there is.
do feel that like you have that benevolent vibe, and is that? Tell me more about that though. Like this is not like don't take it. It's not specifically like a compliment thing. Like I'm just saying it's more than that. I'm just saying
It's
I'm
just an
fascinated to
emanation
know
of
what that's where that's coming from and
that is that scientifically. I think that purple occur. There's not that many filters. There's nothing in me really. I mean, I have filters. I have my own shit that I deal with, but
yes.
I have much fewer filters than a lot of people.
So you're saying
And
you've cleared very much more of your Jungian shadow and or your dark side or your
I think I came into the world with a lot less filters because
right.
given my upbringing, I should really actually not be here talking to you today. I should be either in a rubber room or in a prison.
Oh boy,
Um,
we've never spoken about that before. Do you want to?
well, it's just because it was just I grew up in a childhood that was very I grew up in a very unsafe childhood. I had a kind of schizo mother and a alcoholic father, so it was
So
more like a no.
there was no like ritualistic abuse stuff that we hear from other
There was
outsiders.
no nothing like that. It was
Okay,
just more like neglect.
right. Okay,
There was
like
no
coldness.
direction.
Yeah, emotional coldness.
A lot of emotional. A lot of my mother was very very much like a walk-in,
Right. Oh God.
very much like an archonic presence,
Right.
which those are very abusive. And so I really do not know. I see people who come from abusive households that just can never get over it. They
Okay.
grow up with a lot of filters. They grow up very unself-directed. They're in a lot of pain, a lot of post-traumatic stress. I
Yeah.
don't know how I'm here. I don't know how. Only to say that I came in through this bloodline that I think probably drove my mother insane. but maybe I've been doing this for a while.
But if you're
You
saying,
know,
I mean, you described your mother as a classic, like the way they would describe like someone from a serpent line. I
yeah.
mean, that's you're saying she's iconic. She shouldn't be
She
like. Why would
it
your
was
mother be
like
like that? I mean,
it was like the Peter thing. Something she was very conflicted. There was a constant battle inside of her. It was like something got in her, and she was constantly battling it.
so from
So
what you just said there, I'm feeling that, and this is part intuitive, that maybe there's no 100% pure line with a serpent or dragon at all. Like the dragons have kind of literally actually mixed their blood with the serpent blood. Is that right?
I think that's possible. I think there'd be a lot of conflict there when you have, I think that's really kind of like the human condition right now is where everybody is existing in a pure state and then they have this archonic mind that's been instilled in
Right.
them.
Yes. The predator. Yes.
And my my mother had, she had a very peculiar story. She was either normal, like okay, but then something would just like take over her, and you could see the difference. It would come into
Yeah.
her eyes.
Yeah.
It would come to, and
Oh
she.
Jesus, this is sounding exactly like. I don't know if you've ever seen Jay Parker. Do you know Jay Parker? He's got
I've heard of that.
videos. He's got videos on YouTube. I'll send you a link later. That's exactly what he describes this in a few videos. Like he says, I've seen my parents, and they change, like something takes them over. It's like possession. And yeah,
Yeah, I never had any real connection with my mother. It was almost
right,
like she was just a incubator because she had the bloodline.
right.
It was
But I
like
said,
there
I
was
mean,
no.
but it's sounding really to me. This is kind of contradictory because like I said, you're describing your mother like behaving pretty much like the negative bloodlines, but then you're saying you're from the dragon ones, which are the good ones. Why was your mother like that?
I know. The only thing I could say is probably that had not that the blood didn't waken up in her. It didn't. It never woke up in her.
So if it's not awoken
It has to be woke up.
100%, negative influences can come in and take you over and stuff.
Yes. The
Like
whole
they kind
point
of
was to have.
because the whole point is I've had this myself. I mean, the more you advance spiritually, the more you feel like entities want to take you over all the time and everything, and you have attacks, and because they want to work, because they're like, well, this is a powerful vehicle, we want to work through that person. So I think is that sort of what you're saying, like because she was not
I think
fully
so. I think
developed
that's sort
yet,
of. I think that's kind of like what happened. Is
so she was taken over.
yeah, basically, because she did not start getting loopy until after I was born. It was like her other kids, which had a different father than me. Um,
Okay, so you've got half siblings. Okay,
yeah, I have half siblings, and they have her. My mom was very quite psychic,
right,
but she
of
was
course,
scared of it.
right,
She's frightened of it.
yeah,
And in one hand, she was always conflicted about it. Like sometimes it was good, and then sometimes it was evil. So she was always, you see that division there.
yeah.
So but she did not start getting cruel until after I was born. It was like it's almost as if some oppositional force knew and
Jeez,
wanted to.
are you that bad? Do you drove her crazy when you after you were
I did.
born?
I did drive her
Just
crazy.
kidding. No, but
No,
it's just a joke.
seriously, it was like an act. My mom was really racist too. She was scared, not racist like she was scared of like other races of people,
Okay, like xenophobia.
like
Yeah,
like black people. She was scared of them,
yeah, yeah.
and she had this obsession about looking, um, about weight, the way that obsession about body appearance. So when I was born, I looked like a black child. So
Okay,
here's this woman that's really self-conscious about racial issues. She's a white woman in the 60s carrying around this giant black baby.
right.
Okay?
Well, wait. You look pretty white to me now. Why did you look?
It's it's yeah, it was just I was born really dark complected. You
Okay.
probably can't,
No, yeah.
but you might not be able to see. I'm always tan.
Oh, okay, okay.
It's
So,
it's just the Welsh or black Irish blood in us.
yeah,
But when I was born, I was just really dark complected, and my dad was super dark complected. And so it looked like she was carrying a giant black baby around, and it really embarrassed her. So she had a lot of resentment about me right off the bat. But it was almost like I was coming into the world going, so.
Well, can we shift a little to the
Sure.
bloodline, like the how does it work with? I remember you were saying last time in one of the chats that a lot of bloodlines are kind of quote unquote abandoned, you could say, like they're kind of part of the main thing, but they're kind of left out to dry type thing, like because I was asking, I mean, I've spoken to a couple of, I know someone else that they reckon they're kind of a bloodline person. I'm like, why aren't you a millionaire or a politician? A lot of people seem to say that a lot of people that are from the offshoot bloodlines, they're not in privileged positions or anything. So how did it happen to you? Like, how did you end up here now? Like, did you always know, or did you tell me like you found out on your own, like around my age? How did it?
I found out on my own.
Right.
So, as far as privilege.
Yeah, like how does it work? How could you be part? I mean, I might even be part of one of these, and I'm thinking, well, I'm just a random. I never knew anything about this till a month ago. But the hell is this? Like, so there must be thousands of people out there that are part of these like offshoots of these bloodlines, and they don't even know it. They may never find out. Okay.
They will never find out because it needs to be reminded. How? And how I started. I did this inadvertently. Is I got at some point, where I was like, well, I want to study where I came from. Who do I come from? And then and somebody told me, they said, well, instead of just like reading stuff in books, why don't you have some experience of where you came from? So I started eating and cooking Irish food. I started listening to Irish music.
Right.
So it wasn't just reading the history of Ireland.
So then that whole thing started to awaken in your psyche, right? Yeah.
Started to work in the subconscious.
Yes.
Awakening.
Yes.
It's
it's ancestral memory, like we were saying.
Ancestral memory, correct.
Yeah.
I would have bouts. I would go to places like a Renaissance fair, and all of a sudden I would have a flashback of where I'm no longer at a fair. I'm somewhere else in time.
Past life memory. Okay, cool.
Yeah. Where it would be very real. It would be so real that people around me are going, "What's wrong? What's wrong with you? What's happening?"
But this was never going to come up. But this what you just said reminded me of this very important thing. That, and have seen these conversations on a couple of friends' walls, who are pagans and stuff. Like there's a guy I know. I think he's like part Irish and stuff from the UK. And they keep discussing how it's very important to connect with your own individual gods and stuff like that are matched, that have to do with your race. Like people tell me that maybe I should just try to connect to Hercules and Zeus and stuff. And I'm like, but that's like mythological. But it doesn't matter because that's all imprinted apparently in your DNA because you're from that race. So apparently, foreign entities, foreign deities should be allergic to a human being. Like you should focus on your own ancestral deities and gods. I mean, what do you know about that?
You should you should really, but there's a correlation between these aspects of gods, and in Greek mythology has a corresponding god in Irish mythology.
Yes, and the Romans like Zeus, Jupiter, or whatever.
Yeah. So
I mean, but these are entities. Like, I mean, they may not have been, real. Like,
what is going to best? I might have had something awoken listening to tales about an Irish god.
Okay.
That I could not, hearing about the same god that was doing the same thing in Greece, because there wouldn't have been any familiarity there.
Yes, because in this particular incarnation, you haven't got like an ancestral connection to that. Yeah.
So I think it's really important to have the experience of your own, the music of your culture, going way back in the mute, because that's all sound. I
Because
think
it's like a healing, like a DNA awakening code thing, a DNA code
yeah,
awakening. It's like,
sound
those healing,
sounds
those workshops and stuff that you see in the New Age, things like the
yeah.
awakening DNA codes are for $1 million an hour or whatever they do.
I
But that's it's you get the similar type of thing when you connect with your own cultures. Things like,
Yes,
yeah.
its sound is vibration. Our
Yes.
language used to be based not on spelling or words,
Yes. On
but on the sounds of
the actual sounds. Yeah.
communication.
That's very interesting with the language, quote unquote, spelling. Uh, I've noticed. I mean, I'm not a master of all languages. I speak two though, like Greek and English, as good as each other. Um, I have noticed. I don't believe there's another language that other than English that's got the worst like disparity between pronouncing and spelling. Like you look at something dough. Like I mean, sourdough bread. I used to buy sourdough bread. So dough. I mean, instead of spelling it D-O, it's like D-O-G-H. Why? It's like it must be the most black magic, heavy
It is.
language
English,
there is. It's like a guy I know. I think he's like part Irish and stuff from the UK, and they keep discussing how it's very important to connect with your own individual gods and stuff like that are matched that have to do with your race. Like people tell me
yes.
that maybe I should just try to connect to Hercules and Zeus and stuff, and I'm like, but that's like mythological, but it doesn't matter because that's all imprinted apparently in your DNA because you're from that race. So apparently, like
Yes.
basically foreign entities, foreign deities should be allergic to a human being. Like you should focus on your own ancestral deities and gods. I mean, what do you know about that?
You should you should really, but there's a correlation between these aspects of gods, and in Greek mythology has a corresponding god in Irish mythology.
Yes, and Romans and the Romans like Zeus, Jupiter, or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
But I mean, but these are entities. Like I mean, they may not have been real. Like
what is going to best, you know, I might have had something awoken listening to tales about an Irish god
okay.
that I could not, hearing about the same god that was doing the same thing in Greece, because there wouldn't have been any familiarity there.
Yes,
A different name,
because in this particular incarnation, you haven't got like an ancestral
right?
connection to that. Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
I think it's really important to have the experience of your own, the music of your culture, going way back in the mute, because that's all sound. I
Because
think
it's like a healing, like a DNA awakening code thing, a DNA code
yeah,
awakening. It's like
sound
those healing,
sounds
those workshops and stuff that you see in the New Age, things like the
yeah.
awakening DNA codes are for $1 million an hour or whatever they do.
I,
But that's it's you get the similar type of thing when you connect with your own cultures. Things like,
yes.
yeah.
Its sound is vibration. Our
Yes.
language used to be based not on spelling or words,
Yes. On
but on the sounds of
the actual sounds.
communication.
Yeah. That's very interesting with the language, quote unquote, spelling. Uh, I've noticed. I mean, I'm not a master of all languages. I speak two though, like Greek and English, as good as each other. Um, I have noticed. I don't believe there's another language that other than English that's got the worst like disparity between pronouncing and spelling. Like you look at something dough. Like I mean, sourdough bread. I used to buy sourdough bread. So dough. I mean, instead of spelling it D-O, it's like D-O-G-H. Why? It's like it must be the most black magic, heavy
It
language
is.
there is. It's like a spell, pretty much. Yes, on the mind.
It is English. I
Yes.
think I truly think that English was developed to be a programming language.